Mr. Clerk, can I have roll call, please? Here.
Here. Mrs. Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Tollett.
Here.
Mrs. Simmons.
Here.
Mrs. Davis.
Here.
Mrs. Keys.
Here.
Mr. Jesse.
Here.
Mr. Stewart.
Here.
10 present, 1 absent. Mr. Callahan has an excuse here.
Can I get a motion for excuse from Mr. Callahan?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Mitchell. Second by Mr. Tillett. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Questions been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Can I get approval of the minutes? Moved by Mr. Jesse. Second. Second by Mr. Sears. Any discussion? Question? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to...
Mr. Stewart, we have a public hearing.
All right, we'll do the public hearings.
You are hereby notified that a public hearing will be held on Tuesday, September 8th, 2020 at 7 p.m. in council chambers, second floor, Elyria City Hall, 131 Court Street, to consider the following. An ordinance granting a conditional use permit pursuant to Chapter 1135 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Elyria, Ohio, to BDC Builders and Developers Company, Inc., for a residential planned unit development at real property located on Middle Avenue, Elyria, Ohio.
Are there any proponents?
Mr. Barron should be on.
Yes, I'm on.
Mr. Barron, if you can hear us, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Richard Barron, 27201 Royalton Road, Columbia Station, Ohio, 44028.
All right, Mr. Barron, you're here to kind of discuss this project, if you will. Give us, the council, an overview of what's going on here.
Sure, this land is directly south of Colonial Oaks Mobile Home Park on Middle Avenue. Currently, the land is farmed and it was recently annexed into the city from Carlisle Township. We have completed the Phase 1 environmental study and have a jurisdictional letter from the Corps of Engineers to allow us to proceed with the site. We are proposing approximately 130 single-family lots. Minimum size is 55 by 110. Phase 1 is projected to be 41 lots. We have an entrance off of Middle Avenue and will provide a stub to the south of us, which is the land owned by the Polish Club, and also a stub to the east, which is owned by Alberts. We are requesting conditional use zoning. Currently it is RLD, which is a zoning that it came into the city once it was annexed, and we're requesting to use the residential PUD overlay. As part of the design drawings that were submitted to the engineer's office, the sanitary sewer is designed and is based on future expansion to the east towards Indian Hollow to make sure it fits all the parties' needs. We have developed a stormwater plan, which will keep all of our stormwater detained into 3 basins. All the stormwater will be stopped, reduced in flow, and then released into the existing drainage courses. At this time, I'd be glad to take any questions or comments.
Any questions for Mr. Barron? Thank you, Mr. Barron. Are there any proponents? Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents?
Mr. Clerk, I have 2 letters here.
This is Mr. Laco.
One's from Leanne Arroyo, 247 Massachusetts Avenue. Here are my concerns in writing that can be read during today's public hearing. There are sex offenders that live here in CO that are not supposed to be. I'm unsure if we have unregistered ones staying with people that the local law enforcement agencies do not know about. We have juveniles that consistently break into homes and cars and other miscellaneous buildings. Kids and adults do drug deals in broad daylight. I'm afraid that the behaviors that happen here will spill over to the new homeowners or renters of this new housing project once built. Once these homes are built, there are no adequate sidewalks here, as I have been fighting to get one from the main entrance of my mobile home park to Wood Street for 3.5 years. Not everyone has a car to take them places. A sidewalk would need to be put in from the proposed housing project to Wood Street I've seen way too many people narrowly get hit by speeding cars. They come out of Elko Factory, which is across the street from this proposed project. Leanne Royal. Another letter here from Mr. Phil Banco, and it says, gentlemen, my name is Phil Banco. I reside at 10364 Middle Avenue. Our property is adjacent to the planned development. I've been a resident of Elyria for over 70 years, and I personally object to this planned development. Once the developer develops the property, sells it, and leaves, taking the profits with him, the city of Elyria now collects city income tax from the new residents and utility fees, a win for both parties. Now, the residents must put up with the construction delays, road work for storm and sewer feeder lines, and more delays. This project will increase the traffic on Middle Avenue for years, and the bottom line is our taxes will increase. So what is the benefit for the residents on Middle Avenue? Nothing. We pay more, get less, and become more inconvenienced by the large project. The city of Elyria has had a hard time taking care of its current problems at hand. How in the world can it handle a major project such as this? Over the years of living on South Middle Avenue, I have found that South Side residents are last on the city's list for any improvements. Now the planning committee is determined to push the project. Again, I am not in favor of the project, and the committee should think again. The property was just annexed, and now the developer wants to move forward. In the end, the residents of Middle Avenue get stuck with extra bills and increased taxes. Vote this project down. Think again. Mr. Banco. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Are there any other opponents? Are there any other opponents? I declare this public hearing has been held.
An ordinance granting a conditional use permit pursuant to Chapter 1135 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Elyria, Ohio, to BDC Builders and Developers Company, Inc., for residential plan unit development at real property located on Middle Avenue, Elyria, Ohio.
Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed.
Second. Second by Mr. Sierra. Any discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-100.
Very good. At this time, I'm going to turn over the microphone to Mr. Jesse. He has a good article here that he'd like to share with those in attendance and those who are watching online.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know I shared with you the story that was in the paper back in a month or so ago about Rick Redpath and the extra effort that he went to make a little boy's birthday extra special. And I can attest to this because my grandkids are with us on Wednesdays, which is normally our garbage day. They're going to be really upset tomorrow that there's no garbage truck. And my grandson in particular, who's 2.5, he'll be anywhere in the house and he'll go, garbage truck. He hears it coming and he's got 4 opportunities. He's got each side of the street for the recycling and for the regular garbage pickup. And Rick is our garbage man too. And not only Rick, but whoever else is driving, they know to honk their horn when they come by the house. And, you know, to see the expression on his face is just priceless. So we appreciate it. I mean, mostly we appreciate the efficient service that we get and the incredible array of services that we get from our sanitation department. So we appreciate that the most, but it's nice when there's an extra story and we like to recognize. And I think the article's up here. I know you guys all had a copy of it, but if Mr. I, the manager of sanitation, and Rick would, I don't know where you're supposed to come or what we're going to do, but stand up and thank you very much.
Yeah.
I guess we're not going to shake your hand and give you like a proclamation or anything. So
No.
I guess that's it. But again, we really appreciate all that not only you, Rick, but Rodney, all of your staff. Just a great job, and we appreciate when there's extra effort made. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes. To echo Mr. Jesse's sentiments, thank you again from all council members. I think you guys do a fantastic job, and these are good feel good moments in the climate that we're living in our country. So thank you for your hard work and efforts. Thank you. Does not go unnoticed.
And you do not have to stay any longer. You may leave. Or you can stay if you want.
Remarks and reports from city officials. Mayor Whitfield.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief this evening. One of the updates is around the CARES Act. So as many of you know, we received additional funding of $800K through the controlling board, but there's also a bill at the Senate, at the House, to allocate the remainder of the $650 million that the state has to give to local governments. We will receive just under $2 million. And if this bill passes, it'll also change the date for the deadline to expend funds from October 15th to November 20th. So just keep your eyes out on that. If you got any relationships at the House, feel free to give them a call and let them know that City of Elyria is poised and ready to receive these resources. And I'm sure you'll get some updates from the rest of the team about the current use of CARES Act. So thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Mayor Whitfield? Mr. Tolet.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Mayor, have they changed the rules at all on how we can spend those funds? Has there been any changes that you're aware of? Thank you.
Through you, Chair. So they haven't changed any of the rules, but they have given some more guidance in terms of use of funds because there was a lot of gray areas. So they've clarified, the Treasury has clarified some of those areas. But the hope is if they give us this other chunk of money, they're going to need to make this more flexible. And hopefully we'll be able to use this in more ways because I think it'll end up being a total of over $4 million that is being expected to spend in 6 months on one thing. It's just not realistic. So we're hoping but that's a federal change that needs to happen.
Any other questions for the mayor? Thank you. Safety Service Director Firestein.
No report at this time, but happy to try to answer any questions.
Questions for Director Firestein? Finance Director Pileski.
Nothing at this time, Mr. President.
Law Director Deary.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just ask for an executive session this evening to discuss, on the one hand, litigation matters. City's insurance counsel is here tonight, Attorney Todd Raskin, to discuss actually 2 different proceedings, and also to discuss matters involving interests in real estate as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anything else for Law Director Deere? Does anybody have any questions unrelated to that? No? Very good. Assistant Safety Service Director Brubaker.
Good evening, members of council. I just wanted to give you a brief update on the CARES Act money that was allocated for operating expenses a couple weeks ago. We were allocated $70,000, and to date, we've spent or encumbered $64,350 of that dollars. So we have roughly $5,000 left to expend. The things that have purchased, we purchased the plexiglass barriers. These were all handmade by Mr. Schneider. He bought the wood, he bought the glass, made it, screwed it in, put all this, set all this up, purchased all that. If you have not seen down in public utilities, we have the yellow chain and the stanchions along with the 6-foot markers on the floor. So as people come in to pay their bills, so we use money for that. PPE, we bought some masks. We bought multiple sanitizing units, portable handheld, so our guys and ladies can go through buildings. They wand it and they spray it. We've got some backpack units, and we got portable units that are being used on our playground equipment, our rec centers, Muni Court Police Department, and City Hall. We'll be expanding that to our outlying locations this week. We also bought the sanitizer product that's used. If you haven't noticed, but here at City Hall over the last week, the contractor has put in the touchless water faucets in the bathrooms, the flushers, so you no longer have to push the buttons to flush the toilets as well. Those that were, I think that was completed today here in City Hall. We've started to put in, using our communication guys, putting in the touchless towel racks. So you put your hands under there, paper towel comes out. Muni Court will be the next building that we've allocated funds for to put those same items in municipal court. We also put in 2 touchless water filling stations in at the police department. Our officers go through a lot of water. They'd use their own water bottles instead of touching a fountain. We're able to put in units there. They just put their bottles underneath it, use the thing to push the button, and it automatically fills their water bottles. Working with IT and communications, we are still in the process of reconfiguring the doors here at City Hall. Eventually, these doors back here will be touchless, so they'll be able to walk up to them. The doors will open without having to have anybody touch those, as well as an intercom system and the key card system. Some additional allocations that I'll be asking for in the future will be touchless sliding doors at our rec centers. I met with Mr. Horwittle, and all those doors are pretty much 20 to 25 years old, the ones that you have to pull open. We're getting quotes that when they walk up to them, the doors will slide open. There's also better security utilizing those doors as well. And we want to expand I talked to the mayor today, we want to expand the touchless faucets, flushers, towel dispensers to EPD, the fire department, and all of our outlying locations. That's going to require additional allocations. That brings me to the COVID team, the folks that we have that are out there doing the sanitizing. This is the first payroll. This is the second week. At the end of this week will be the end of the first payroll. We will hit the 51% with those individuals. They're out every day, 3 to 4 hours every day, sanitizing anything they possibly can sanitize. Vehicles, playgrounds, splash pads, buildings, equipment, it's all being sanitized. So once we're able to, I can work with Mr. Farrell, once we identify what this payroll looks like, this will allow us to project what the payroll is going to look like till the end of the year. I know there is money allocated in the personnel side that we allocated with this initial amount. We're not going to be able to use all that because we're not going to expend it because we got started late. I'd like to reallocate some of those at a future date to do some of these other projects so we can get that money encumbered and meet the deadline that we're dealing with right now. I know the mayor's working with federal agencies and state agencies to try to stretch that, but we want to make sure we hit the deadline on that first initial amount of money. So that'll be coming down the pike at a later finance meeting once I'm able to work with Mr. Farrell. With that being said, I did give the clerk of council a copy of my document here, and she'll put that in the minutes, but I'll entertain any questions you might have.
Any questions for Mr. Brubaker? Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you to you and your team and Mr. Snyder for all the hard work. It's truly appreciated, and we really, I know I complain, but we really appreciate these. So, and the touchless in the bathrooms that's awesome. So thank you and your team very much.
It was fun to play with them today. Just stick your hand there and watch them turn on.
Mr. Pileski?
Through you, in regards to hitting the 51% of work performed on mitigating COVID, make sure you document everything you can, because if we spend all of this money, this will be the focus of the single audit next year. So the independent auditors will be focusing on this program. This will surpass the HUD monies that we get, block grant monies, if we spend all this. So they're going to be digging into this expenditures for this. So make sure everything is documented to the hilt.
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I've spoken with the mayor and the director on this, and I've showed him what we've started. Every day I speak with different individuals. We have the cemeteries, we have the Parks and Rec people, they're all one unit, but they're doing different things right now, and I get a daily update on what they're doing, and I document that in a spreadsheet by employee on what they're doing. So we are doing that, Mr. Pileski.
Any other questions for Mr. Brubaker? Thank you, Mr. Brubaker. Ms. Calvert? Don, I'm not sure if your microphone's on.
All right, can you hear me now? I thought it was the mask, excuse me. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I wanted to give a report out that to date we have received 24 applications for the Small Business CARES Act funding grant program, totaling about $740,000 in requests, so significantly more than we've allocated to date. However, as staff is looking through those applications, we are finding that there are some request that likely won't qualify, or a portion of a request that the company is asking for won't actually qualify under those CARES Act guidelines. So we are reviewing those. We are still accepting applications, telling the businesses, even if they're not in the first queue, to please go ahead and continue submitting, because that will lock in their space if more funding becomes available in the future. We'll be able to review those applications. I also wanted to share with you guys that we are continuing to see activity going on in economic development. So while the pandemic certainly has paused things or made businesses reconsider what their plans were before, we are seeing things move forward. So right now we have about 5 projects that we are currently actively working that are conservatively estimated at about $35 million in capital investment and about 150 jobs. So those can fluctuate and change. We're seeing it in manufacturing, we're seeing it in entertainment, we're seeing it in a variety of industries. So we have positive news, and we are moving forward and seeking to support those businesses. I also want to mention that I did have an opportunity to drive down the Chestnut Connector Road, which is very impressive. So there are 60 acres there available for development. So I am working with the broker at this time to help market those properties and share the information and the tools and resources the city has available to help encourage development there. So that's a very exciting project. If you haven't had a chance to see it, it's very impressive. And then also wanted to share that we are continuing to field calls and interest in properties downtown. So I think that the library is helping. There's a new ice cream and sandwich shop coming to downtown, and we are continuing to get requests for information about available properties and programs available to help spur development downtown.
Very good. That's good to hear. Thank you for your efforts. Any questions from Ms. Calvert in regards to her comments? Thank you, Ms. Calvert. Mr. Corzine, wastewater. You had a busy weekend yesterday.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, we've actually had a couple of very busy weeks, and by we, I don't just mean us in the city, I mean the residents as well. We get these rain events that just slam us all over the place. 2 totally different events, one on August 28th and one yesterday. The one on the 28th gave us 2.3 inches of rain. If you remember that one came down in several boluses of really quick downpours over very short periods of time, completely inundated everything. And we ended up with 30 calls for basement backups or water backups into the homes. That event, it was all over the city. You couldn't just pick out just one area. It seems like everybody got hit. The event yesterday, we had well in excess of 3.5 inches of rain. I had 3.5 inches on the southeast side where I'm at. The plant, the gauge maxed out at 3 inches and flatlined. We're rescaling that tomorrow to take that up to 6 inches so we can read higher. But the north side definitely got way worse than the southeast side. If someone told me that their gauge measured 5 inches, I wouldn't doubt it for a second, because that was the area that got hit really hard yesterday. The Spring Valley area, Canterbury, everywhere up in that zone. And it takes a lot to flood out Canterbury, but so again, 2 different rain events, a lot of rain, short periods of time. Our plant on the August 28th, we hit a maximum flow of 73 million gallons per day. Normally we're around 6. The rain event yesterday, we buried the needle at 100 million gallons per day, and we couldn't read it any more than that. So the plant, was taking water that it doesn't take, and we couldn't even measure how much was coming in. But that gives you an idea of the magnitude of these storms. And I know the residents get tired of hearing me say this as much as I get tired of saying it, You can't put a pipe in the ground big enough to handle some of these events. But so the things we can't control, we can't control the amount of rain. We can't control how fast it comes down. The thing that I would say, I'm not an engineer, but from my non-engineering perspective, we just keep making haste with this east side release sewer. Keep building this thing, get as much of it in the ground as we can. Get the pickup points as quickly as possible, because the more flow that goes into that thing will actually relieve flow that's going down the 48-inch east side interceptor. So any flows we can take off of that 48-inch pipe into the 78-inch pipe would definitely be a good thing. Continue to build out the plant like we're doing, so that we can take the flows from the big pipe as they start becoming active. At some point in time, we're going to have to address the windward siphon, and that's going to need to be redone to eliminate some of the issues up there. And again, somewhere down the road, we have to address the issues of the private side laterals. The lateral pipes are the 4 to 6 inch pipes that connect the houses to the sewer out in the street. And we know in a number of neighborhoods with the 70 to 100-year-old trees, a number of these lateral pipes are decimated, and they bring a lot of water, and that water is coming into the plant from somewhere. All sewer systems they leak to a certain degree, but we do have the 6% combined sewers that bring some rainwater to the plant. But we have 163 miles of sanitary sewer, but we got 330-something miles of private side lateral pipes. And when you have large neighborhoods where they're leaking at some point in time, we're going to have to address that. But we'll take these in the stages, try to get that pipe going and faster, or however we can, and see what we can do to put this issue to bed. I'll take any questions.
Mr. Corzine, or to the engineer, I guess, or to the administration, as far as who was fielding calls, did we have an overabundance of calls this weekend in regards to Mr. Oswald as the fourth ward? Was what they were speaking to. Yes, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair. My fourth ward, yeah, they really get hit hard. And it's just not this rain or the last rain, but it's been constant. The Spring Valley area is in desperate need of infrastructure. I know it's been discussed and talked about, but we have to do something over there. I'm feeling sorry for them people. Every time it rains, they must cringe, and just not when we get a 2 or 3 inch rain. They've been putting up with flooded basements, flooded yards constantly, to the point where I've seen, yesterday I was driving the areas, I have 4 or 5 adult elderly people out trying to pump the water out of their backyards, out of their basements, but there's no place for it to go. It is terrible over there, and it needs to be addressed, and it keeps, I'm sure it gets pushed aside because we got so much other stuff, but they need help. They need help fast. So I just wanted to mention, and you said also Canterbury, which I can't believe people in Canterbury was going to have problems. I've got a lot of calls, probably 5 or 6. I had meetings with people that were coming up to me and talking with me yesterday because they're just throwing their hands up. One guy, his insurance company finally dropped him. He can't get flood insurance because he's already had 4 or 5 claims. So we need to address some of these things sooner than later to give those people some help. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Firestein or the mayor, did you want to comment in regards to that, or is this something that, the process is going through that, So we have people fielding those calls and addressing those situations, or
Through the
passing
chair-
it to the engineer?
Through the chair to council members, and I will let Director Corzan talk about it as well. I mean, his department's the one that receives a lot. His department's the one that will receive a lot of the phone calls when they come in, and so that way they can dispatch the crews that go out there. And we get some of the calls, being a holiday yesterday, we did get a few phone calls on our cell phones as well when we were talking about it, but I'll let Mr. Director Corzan talk about the calls that were coming in, because that's usually the line that people call to help dispatch the crews coming out, but let Mr. Corzan.
Mr. Corzine, if you want to kind of give us a broad brush on what was happening yesterday through your phone calls?
Yeah, basically, it was probably 2 hours into the event that the call started coming in. And as I described, the Spring Valley off of Hilliard and Canterbury, you know, that whole area. And Mr. Oswald's right. I mean, we do have issues with that area in the Spring Valley area because that was annexed into the city way back when. It had the sanitary and storm systems that were put in by the township back in the day. And we've had conversations with the city engineer about that area, and he can speak to that way better than I can as far as what can be done in that area and whatever. My department, we can only operate and maintain the infrastructure that we have. You know, none of us are engineers. We can't design something to replace or retrofit what's there. But I'll let Mr. Schneider speak to that if he wants to.
Any other questions for Mr. Corzine? No. Thank you, Mr. Corzine.
Thank you.
Engineer Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. President. Regarding the storm in the Spring Valley area, I think we all pretty much know the situation over there. It's as Terry Corzine said, there's no storm sewers over there. It's very poor drainage. It was annexed in from the township, and a lot of the ditches that used to be over there were filled in for various reasons, and we have no access to them to clean them out. There's all sorts of issues over there. We did, I believe about a year or two ago, we did have a meeting with a lot of the residents over there in regards to trying to move forward with some sort of storm sewers in the area. It is something that we feel that the residents need to share in the cost of, which is the biggest obstacle for this. There's nothing we can't solve with money over in that area. Unfortunately, it's going to take a lot of it, and that's the problem. We don't have a lot of money to throw in those at this time. So we do need help from others. It'd be great if we could get some grant funds, but there's a lot of other areas in the city that have issues as well. And a lot of them stem from areas that drain through ditches, areas that have storm sewers that are maintained by the city. We don't have a lot of these issues because we're out there, we're maintaining them. They were sized appropriately for a standard storm. Storms like the storm we received here the other day, as Terry said, you don't design for those sizes. If you do, once again, it's one of those things you just can't afford. It's a lot of dollars for empty space. So,
Mr. Oswald, I know you have your hand up. If you want to you can probably have a conversation, but if you'll let you add one more comment to this and then follow up.
Sure. I understand the people in that area over there in Spring Valley understand that they are probably going to have to take blunt of the cost, but they know that they have to do it now because you have to let people know if you try to sell your house, you have to put that down that they know they can't sell these houses. They know now they're backed up against a corner and they got to do something. We need to get something started. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Oswald. Okay, Mr. Schneider, if you want to continue with your report.
Thank you, Mr. President. In regards to projects that are going on in the city, we are still moving forward with a lot of projects. In the next week or so, we should have the bricks for the fountain so we can start getting that moving forward and complete that project. The Chestnut Commons Connector Drive is They're probably about halfway with the concrete drive itself. Unfortunately, the past couple of rains we've had have pushed them back. They were actually hoping to be at Broad Street by the end of this week, but that was requiring them to pour today, which they could not do due to the fact that it was pretty wet out there and their haul road is wet. So it caused a little bit of an issue out there. The East Avenue St. Mary's Way improvement project is moving forward as well. A lot of the underground work is complete. So we should see them button that up hopefully in the next week or so. Should see St. Mary's Way getting paved and some of the other restoration going forward. Street resurfacing, as you know, we have two phases there, phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 2 is actually beating phase 1 right now. Phase 2 has about 80% of the streets complete as far as asphalt goes. They still need to go out there and adjust manholes, catch basins, things of that nature, and do the handicap sidewalks. But the phase 2 portion, they are moving along. I believe there's about 4 streets left out of the 14 in that section. In phase 1, they've only started over on Rosalie last week. They started doing some of the concrete work over there. So they haven't started the asphalt work in that section yet. And every week the contractor keeps pushing it back a week, unfortunately. So unfortunately, I can't give you good news that they're starting this week, but hopefully next week. The West River Road water main sewer project, that project should be starting in the next week or two. The contractor who has that is also the same one with the connector road. So as soon as he finishes some things up there at the connector road, they'll be bringing a crew in here to take care of the West River Road water main project from Lake Avenue up to State Route 57. Abbey Road South, that project from Cleveland Street to the railroad tracks will start in 2 weeks as well. That is over there by the rallies, headed over to the railroad tracks. That's the resurfacing. That shouldn't take too long. Simple mill and fill for the most part for that project. So I would anticipate it take 2-3 weeks to complete that with, it's largely because of the adjustments. You can't do all your adjustments in one day. Typically, contractors try to do half of a road and then they switch over the other half of the road to help maintain traffic. Street sweeping, we're in phase 2 of that. Probably about halfway done with the street sweeping. So if you see the pink signs out there, please don't park on the road. They'll be coming soon and getting the street swept. The East Side Relief Sewer, we probably have a couple more weeks of the sewer work to complete over there. And then we're hoping to start to do the restoration on the Bon Air and Poplar Street. So I know that that intersection's been closed for a while and a lot longer than we had hoped, but we are nearing the light at the end of the tunnel. So bear with us a little bit longer and we'll get it done and opened up. So I guess with that, I open up to any other questions council may have.
Mr. Schneider, in regards to the Chestnut Ridge Interconnector, what is the timeline for that completion?
Well, the actual completion is next year, and that's largely because of traffic poles. We can't finish the intersection over there until we get the traffic poles. The road itself, as far as connecting the concrete portion up to and have a temporary tie-in up on Broad Street, I would say if everything goes well, they'd be done in about a month. As far as a lot of that, they might have some odds and ends on the outskirts. As I said, that they were actually hoping to have almost the entire road poured up to Broad Street this week, but it's because of the rain. So they do have some manholes to adjust out there, some little areas. So there's not a lot left for them, but they have so many people out there working that they make it look like it's flying. They really do. I mean, they have 3 to 4 crews there every day working, and they're working 410s typically, but then they bring in, the what they like to call almost like a dream team on Fridays to work. It's some of their higher ups to come in and knock out some other odds and ends. So they're really doing a really good job out there.
Good. It's good to hear. You made comments in regards to this Abbey Road from Cleveland Street to the railroad tracks is going to be resurfaced. I think you and I had conversation maybe about a month ago in regards to that area. When it was heavy rains, it was flooding over and through there. That was one of the areas at that at the intersection of Cleveland and Abbey there that had some major standing water over and through there. I didn't know if that was being addressed as far as when they mill it down.
Yeah, if it's on the South Abbey portion, yes, we will definitely take care of it.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Schneider? Ms. Davis?
Through you, Mr. Chair. In regards to the street sweeping, State Route 57, we put a lot of money into it. The trees are growing up just like taking over the road. And it doesn't look very well when you're coming off the turnpike onto 57 again. So it'll be appreciative if somebody would go down and sweep it. They haven't touched it. Route 57 going north or either coming south from the mall area up to Bell Avenue, up to 113. It needs to be looked at. It's growing up, trash is everywhere. And this has been quite a while now.
You're saying it hasn't been swept, or
It
you were
has
looking
not
for?
been swept, it has not been, any trash picked up, and like I said, the trees, growing up into the, divider there is very, unattractive.
Okay, we'll take a look at it and, we'll see if we can have city crews take care of it. If not, then, we will get somebody else out there, I guess, to take care of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, Mr. Snyder, I had a lot of phone calls and emails yesterday about Twin Lakes and the Straw Hag Ditch. And we've been talking about the Straw Hag Ditch for years. Can we please do something?
I guess the question would be, what do you want to do?
I want the residents not to have.
I can tell you that it's been, the ditch has been cleaned in the past. There is a small section out there that the county engineer's office has identified that they are going to be cleaning. But the fact of the matter is, it's built in a floodplain. No matter what you do, it's going to flood. If that was built nowadays, we would have large retention ponds out there and everything else. So, short of putting a storm sewer extended from, and I don't even know where, the river, or put a stormwater pump station in, I don't know how else we would drain that area at this time.
Mr. President, through you, I know at one time, we had an agreement with the county that they would clean part of Straw Hag and we would clean, and we would work together, and there was money allocated. Can we try that again?
And that's what they're doing. There's actually an assessment that's built into every property out there that benefits, and it's not a lot of money, but for instance, say a house pays $150 a year, they pool all that, and then they save it, and then they go out and they actually do these little cleanings that are part of the Straw Hag Ditch. So, and the city actually is also assessed as well. We have parks out there that they assess us, that we pay. So there is a fund out there. I don't know how much money's in the kitty at this time. It's county controlled. Once again, I can reach out to the county engineer's office, talk to them. They did identify earlier this year that they plan to be out there. From my understanding, they typically go out there in the fall when a lot of the brush is lost its leaves, so you can see in there better, and then you're also cleaning that out at the same time. So that's my understanding. That's what their typical method of operation is. But I will definitely reach out to the county engineer's office again.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I can get this thing in my ear. What's over there on the intersection of Hilliard and Abbey? I know that all the lights and everything, the poles had to be ordered. I see they are starting to make progress. Is everything in, and are we going to be able to finish this up, and is there a timeline? Because now the school's done, it's looking really good, and I was just wondering when it might be finished. Thank you.
The Abbey Road Hilliard traffic light, yes, they are working on that. The poles are all in, so those are a go, it's my understanding. So it's just a matter of knocking out the work. So Typically, it would take about a month once they have everything in, so they just started that, I believe, was it previous week? So we're probably about 2 weeks into it right now. I would think it would be done here in the next 2 to 3 weeks, provided there's no issues, weather and everything else, but, yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Schneider? Thank you, Mr. Schneider.
Thank you.
Police Department, Chief Whiteley. Elyria Fire Department Chief Mack was there. I don't know if he's still with us.
No report.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you. Ms. Scott, Community Development? Very good. All right. Again, thank you to the IT Department, Mr. Henderson, who's here in attendance, for your continuous efforts in regards to this, and to Mr. Schneider again for his, and Mr. Brubaker for their continuous efforts with these shields that we have in between the dividers. It's great to get back into full council. So with that being said, to the general public, we're working with the administration to see if we can't be open for the September, I think that's the 21st meeting. I'll be working with, following the COVID-19 policies and making sure that we're all in compliance with that. But I think it's important that we open it up to the public and we have those policies and procedures in place, that we're covering everything in regards to that. And that would be our hopes. Okay? Thank you. I think we got everybody. President's referrals and remonstrances. Item number 1, Planning Commission, or the CD and Planning Commission. Item number 2, CD and Planning Commission. Item number 3, Community Development Planning Commission. Item number 4, to Finance. Item number 5, to Finance. Item number 6, Utilities. Item number 7, Utilities. Item number 8, Utilities. Item number 9, Utilities. Item number 10, Utilities. Item number 11, Utilities. I guess there's nothing more there. Utilities got it all, I guess, is going on. Petitions and remonstrances from council members?
There are none.
Petitions and remonstrances from the lobby?
We have a couple. The first is from Linda Harris, 15551 Quarry Road, Oberlin, Ohio. My name is Linda Harris. I work part-time for the former Parks and Recreation Department for the past 28 years under the direction of the Recreation Supervisor, Rob Horwittle. As a part-time employee, I coordinated and instructed the Youth Volleyball Skills Clinic, youth volleyball camps, adult volleyball leagues, and open adult volleyball sessions. I also refereed youth and adult volleyball leagues and worked as a facilities supervisor during those years. The COVID-19 outbreak prompted cities to temporarily cancel programming, but the city of Elyria shut down the entire Parks and Recreation Department, leaving me unemployed from my part-time job. Since the Elyria Parks and Recreation Department was eliminated, many concerned participants and myself are questioning the status of the future of the department, especially the volleyball programs. To date, I am asking for an answer to the status of the programs, especially volleyball. Thank you for your time and assistance, Mrs. Harris. And then we have one from the Elyria Parks and Recreation Board, Sam Battle, Chairman. At the August 13th, 2020 meeting held at South Park Recreation Meeting Room, motion by John Hammond for the city to revisit the subject of bringing Mrs. Carrie Reardon back into her role as the City of Elyria Parks and Recreation Director, second by Stacy Francis. And that is all.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Reports of standing and special committees.
We have considered the matter of a new liquor license request for Elyria Sunoco Gas at 404 East Avenue, Class C1, C2, and D6. And the City of Elyria does not request a hearing, excuse me.
Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, I'm sorry, I'm confused.
Yes.
Is there an error on the,
Committee reports?
submitted,
Does not request, I'm sorry,
please?
does not request a hearing.
No, it
This
just
is-
says Family Dollar on the agenda. Okay, so it is for the Sunoco? Okay, thank you. With that correction, that it is the Sunoco, I will make a motion that the city does not request a hearing.
Moved by Ms. Mitchell,
Second.
second by Mr. Sears. Any discussion?
Question?
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
That is it for the special committee.
Resolutions first reading.
Sponsored by Finance. A resolution approving a list submitted by the Safety Service Director for the collection of delinquent, inactive utility accounts and directing the Clerk of Council to certify said accounts to the Lorraine County Auditor.
Mr. Gillette?
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2020-18. Sponsored by Finance. A resolution approving a list submitted by the Safety Service Director for the collection of 2018 and 2019 delinquent stormwater fees, directing the Clerk of Council to certify said list to the Lorraine County Auditor and declare an emergency.
Mr. Gillette?
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Any discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
And through you, Mr. President, this also needs to be passed as an emergency.
Does the motion concur? All those in favor of the emergency signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2020-19. Sponsored by Finance. A resolution approving a list submitted by the Safety Service Director for the collection of final assessments for the replacement of private service sewer lines, directing the Clerk of Council to certify said list to the Lorraine County Auditor and declare an emergency.
Mr. Gillette?
Second.
Is that under suspension of rules and declared an emergency? So motion made by Mr. Gillette,
Second.
second by Ms. Davis. All those in favor signify by, let me take a step back. All those in favor of the suspension signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2020-20. Sponsored by Finance. A resolution approving a list submitted by the Safety Service Director for the collection of final assessments for the placement of private water service lines, directing the Clerk of Council to certify said list to Lorraine County Auditor and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet?
I'd be asked that this motion be passed under emergency status.
So the motion be passed under suspension of rules and declared an emergency?
Under suspension of rules and declared an emergency, excuse me.
Moved by Mr. Tolet.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2020-21. That's all resolutions first reading.
Resolution second reading.
There are none.
Resolutions third reading.
There are none.
Ordinances first reading.
Sponsored by Community Development. An ordinance granting a conditional use permit pursuant to Chapter 1135 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Elyria, Ohio, to K. Hovian Homes for residential plan unit development at real property located on Southwood Drive and Indian Hollow Road, Elyria, Ohio.
I declare this ordinance have its first reading, public hearing scheduled for Monday, October the 5th, 2020 at 7 p.m.
Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance amending ordinance 2020-38, known as the 2020 Permanent Appropriations Ordinance, to change funds in various accounts.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. Chairman, I ask that this motion be passed under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance number 2020-101. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Best Equipment to purchase a sanitation truck for the sanitation department through the Sourcewell Purchasing Program.
Mr. Tolet.
I'd like to make a motion that this be passed under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-102. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance ratifying and authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement by and between the City of Elyria and the Fraternal Order of Police, Ohio Labor Council, Inc., Supervisors Unit, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. Chairman, I ask that this motion be passed under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Mr. Firestein, if I, point of order, Mr. Firestein, if you could, for those council members who weren't here for the Finance Committee, can you just kind of give us an overview of this agreement?
Absolutely. Through the chair to members of council, the labor agreement you have in front of you is for the supervisors for the Elyria Police Department. The agreement here has no wage increase, no language changes. It's basically just a rollover for what was previously done before. Granted, they do receive shift differential, so any wages increased by the EPPA contract will then obviously adjust their wages, but for them personally, in that contract, there's no changes, just a rollover of the current language that is already on the books.
Thank you, Mr. Firestein. Any questions for Mr. Firestein? Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-103. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an amendment to the water agreement between the City of North Ridgeville and the City of Elyria.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. Chairman, I ask that this motion be passed under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Mr. Baird?
Thank you.
I don't know if we've had a second. Second by Mr. Baird. Questions be called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-104. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an amendment to the rural Lorain County Water Authority water supply agreement to reflect the correct 2021 deferred rate and tap fees, which provides water services in the Chestnut Commons Commerce Park area.
Mr. Tolet.
I'll make a motion this ordinance be passed under suspension of rules.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'm noticing from the committee report that both this and actually the next ordinance are both to be passed on emergency based upon the committee report. So I will get you, or to the clerk's office, updated, revised documents. So I would ask, I just want to pass that on. And I apologize, Mr. Tolet, for making things even more complicated than they already are. So,
I concur, then I'll revise the ordinance that it also be passed under an emergency as well.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Questions have been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-105. Sponsored by Finance, an ordinance authorizing the adoption of the CARES Act program guidelines for essential services grants and declaring an emergency.
I ask that this ordinance be passed under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any discussion? Questions have been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-106. Sponsored by Finance, an ordinance authorizing the adoption of the CARES Act program guidelines for small business grants and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
I ask that this ordinance be passed under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Any discussion? Questions have been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance number 2020-107. Sponsored by Utilities. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit an application for and accept, if offered, the 2020 playground grant sponsored by DWA Recreation and partnered with Game Time, a Playcore company.
Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second. Second by Mr. Sears. Any discussion? Questions have been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance number 2020-108. Sponsored by Utilities. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the construction of a vehicle storage garage at the wastewater pollution control plant.
Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second. Second by Mr. Sears. Is there any discussion? Questions have been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance number 2020-109. Sponsored by Utilities. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a local public agency LPA agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation, ODOT, for the Elyria TLCI Phase 4 project.
Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second. Second by Mr. Sears. Any further discussion? Questions have been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance number 2020-110. Sponsored by Community Development. An ordinance authorizing the city of Elyria to release the rehabilitation loan lien against real property located at 102 California Drive, Elyria, Ohio, and declare an emergency.
Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tolet. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-111. Sponsored by Community Development and Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an amendment to the Enterprise Zone Agreement dated August 8th, 2018, with the Shops on 57 and Ohio Limited Liability Company and declare an emergency.
Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tolet. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-112. Sponsored by Utilities. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a change order number 1 with the Crossroads Asphalt Recycling, Inc. for the resurfacing of West River Road South Project and declare an emergency.
Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading and under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second. Second by Mr. Sear. Is there any discussion? Question? Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance number 2020-113. That is all ordinances first reading.
Ordinance is second reading.
There are none.
Ordinance is third reading.
There are none.
Committee calls.
Community Development requests the presence of the Law Director, Safety Service Director, Engineer, and Building Inspector on 9/14, 6 p.m. Live stream. Finance requests the Mayor, Finance Director, Law Director, Safety Service Director, and Engineer on 9/14, streamed live immediately following. Council Chambers. Utility Safety Environment request Safety Service Director, Law Director, and Engineer on 9/9, streaming live at 6 p.m. Council Chambers. And Strategic Plan request the Mayor, Safety Service Director, Finance Director, Law Director on 9/21 immediately following the council meeting in the council chambers. That's it.
Miscellaneous and unfinished business. Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, I'd like to consider the following motion without the benefit of a referral or a committee report.
Moved by Ms. Mitchell, second by Mr. Baird. On the, without the benefit of the committee report, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, this is an ordinance appointing Marty Rowe to the Charter Review Commission for the City of Elyria pursuant to Section 2107, Charter of City of Elyria, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Moved by Ms. Mitchell, second by Mr. Baird. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-114.
Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, I'd like to consider this without the benefit of a referral or a committee report.
Second by Mr. Baird. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, this is an ordinance to appoint Phil Tollett, to the City Economic Development Committee.
And through you, Mr. President, this would be an emergency as well due to the fact that the vacancy needs to be imminently filled. And the proposed legislation was drafted as such as well.
Motion concur, make it emergency?
Second by Mr. Baird. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-115.
Just to kind of give you an update in regards to the Elyria City Schools and the agreements that we're having with Franklin and then with university hospitals. The Franklin is moving along. We're going through some of the purchase agreements, and we're working through that. We're hopeful that this will get done here relatively soon. I know there's a timeline with the schools that we're trying to meet, and we'll do everything that we can, but everything is, getting there. It's, we're trying to get to the finish line there. So I just wanted to kind of give everybody an update on that. I know we're going into executive session to kind of talk about some other items, but I guess when we come out of executive session, maybe we can address some other concerns that we have that we need to kind of get some information on. So for Ms. Deary's recommendation here, can I get a motion to go into exec?
And I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm as far as the real estate matter that I'm looking at, and as far as the litigation to discuss, I'm not anticipating or requesting any action coming out of executive session.
Okay. Mr. Baird, I don't know if you finished your motion at that particular time. Moved by Mr. Baird, second by Ms. Mitchell. Roll call vote.
Mr. Callahan. Mr. Sierra.
Aye.
Mr. Oswald.
Aye.
Mr. Baird.
Aye.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Aye.
Mr. Tollett.
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons. Mrs. Davis.
Aye.
Mrs. Keys.
Aye.
Jesse.
Aye.
Mr. Stewart.
Aye. At this time, I would ask everybody to step out for legal matters and real estate discussion.
How's he gonna cut the camera?
Yes. There you go.
Okay.
Sorry.